Hey guys, you are listening to episode 3 of the Creative Talk podcast, and today we have a special guest, Austin Webster, the one, the only.
Oh, you said special guest, and I was like,
guest.
who?
It's
like I was like, we got another guest.
I'm Austin Robinson.
I'm James Rossman.
And I already
and
introduced
I'm Austin
you.
Webster.
Yeah, this is the one. That's the guy. That's the guy we're talking about. Okay, well, this is the main episode we were trying to get to because we always talk about Austin. So, like, after this podcast is done, this is the goal.
Should be.
Goal
You
reached.
guys, I don't think anyone should be talking about me, honestly. That's just your guys' ratings are going to go way up after this.
We're done. Just retired after this. Well, we wanted to talk to you about your short film, Supper.
Yeah.
I'll let you go on and explain what it is.
Okay, well, so Supper is the film that basically consumed my life for the past year and a half, really. It's plain and simple. It's my take on a zombie film. It started out as a 3-page screenplay for a screenwriting class, and then months later, it turned into something where one of my roommates was watching Walking Dead, and I just didn't like it. But I always had this philosophy that, if I don't like something, if I think something's bad, then I am going to ask myself, how would I do it better? So I revisited Supper, tweaked it a little. It was originally supposed to be my final independent study project at Ball State, but we couldn't secure a location for the 5-page version. So we had to actually put it on the back burner. I had to use a different script. And it ended up being a blessing in disguise because I wrote a scene that ended up becoming the opening scene of what the film is now. And I reworked everything else in one day in December of 2018. I sat down for about 6 hours and I wrote the first 24-page draft because I just had the idea. I got the bug and wrote it. So that's not really a short introduction to the short film, but I wanted to basically change how the zombie genre worked because I felt like everything was always post-apocalyptic. Everything has gone awful and everyone's surviving. And I wanted to kind of look at it through the lens of, when this is starting, how would people realistically react to it? But also on a personal level, just take a microscope to the entire country, to the entire world, and just kind of focus in on how this impacts personal relationships.
Yeah, I feel like you don't see that much in zombie films. They'll touch base on it, but like, that's it. Let's see what's going on.
Yeah.
So you started writing December 2018?
I had the first 3-page draft was probably like spring 2017.
Okay.
But what the film is now is completely different than what that draft was. So yeah, December 2018 is when I got that first draft done.
So from start to finish, from writing, how long was that? From pen
of
to
like
paper,
making the film?
from pen to paper, from the first draft to when you wrapped up.
Oh man, we wrapped principal photography in February of this year, 2020. I don't remember what day.
Exact day and time.
It's just been so long. We it was like, I don't know, 5 something on a Friday in February, but it was a good 1 year and 3 months roughly, from writing it to getting it produced and then just going around everyone's schedules to shoot it, which was a nightmare. But it's also something where you can't really be too discouraged by it because the film is done. It's a crew that they're devoting their time to it. All these incredibly talented people who are doing this for basically food and for the passion of it. So I mean, to call it a nightmare, I feel really bad about, but I mean, it's also a learning experience. It was such a learning experience to learn, like, okay, we should have scheduled better this way, or this is what can be done on the next project and such.
Yeah, and I don't remember if it was a post that you made, Austin, or what, but I think one of your crew members or somebody uh made the comment like you weren't going to start it yet, and someone said like, why not now? Why not start now?
Yeah. So January of 2019, there was this other like tiny, like page and a half short sketch, more than likely. Every short film I've done over the past, 4 years now, none of them have gone longer than about 7 minutes, but majority of them are under about 4 or under 3. And they're just these tiny little ideas, and they could be viewed simply as, comedic sketches or something, but a lot of them were really experimental. Austin, that's you actually worked on one with me, Bubblegum from a few years ago, where because you were one of the only people I knew that had a drone. I was like, hey, he does film stuff too, and like I wanted to start reaching out and working with people because it was just me and my buddy Quinn making all these together. So I was so used to this super tiny format that I was up in Muncie at the Sunshine Cafe shooting this short/sketch called Jackpot, and we were in the middle of shooting it. And I just mentioned to Grace Hill that I had written this script that I wanted to send to her to see what she thought about it. Because I was talking to Amy Fry, who was one of the DPs on Supper, and she's one of my best friends. And Grace asked about it, so I sent her a script, and we finished Jackpot that night because it was so short, such an easy shoot. And Grace messaged me sometime within the next week or two, and she just said, well, why can't we do this now? Because I had mentioned, I want to do this at some point within the next 3 or 4 years. She's like, why not now? Mm-hmm. And that was, the first time where I really sat down. I just thought, like, yeah, why not now? I've been so used to limiting myself to these tiny projects, to not relying on such a big crew, or doing these things where I thought that it wouldn't be possible to make them. And she's the first person that I really give credit to making this film happen. Her and then my girlfriend, Katie, because, Grace asked that question, and I asked Katie that, and she's like, well, you should make it. Like, it's, she's like, it's a good script, and you definitely have the passion for the story from what I've seen, and you should do it. So that was, Grace is the person who really got the ball rolling, and she was my producer for that first scene, which ended up being shot in March, and we used that to release an Indiegogo in May, and we raised money to be able to shoot the rest of the film.
So, do you want to go to questions now, James, or?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Are you ready for questions, Austin?
Yep.
Yeah, hit me with questions.
Okay.
All right.
I'll let you read the first one, James. I'll read the second one. There's a typo in here too. I don't remember which one.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit down the line there, but the first one is anonymous. But the first question was, how did you find such a talented redheaded zombie?
Oh,
like,
I'm gonna guess that I know who that one is. So the for people that have seen the film,
I've seen it. By the way, I want to mention this. I got to see the preview premiere. I did not get to see the final with all the sound design done and all because my power was out that day. When that storm came through.
Oh, that's right, because the tornado that came through Mooresville.
Yeah, so I haven't even got to see the final.
Oh, well, I'll send you a link. That's no problem.
That would be awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Just for me.
But yeah, so I'm going to assume that Sabrina sent that in, but Sabrina Dupree, so I, on the side, my little side hustle is every now and then I will dress up and play as Captain America for these little meet and greet events, just because it's just really fun to do. That's actually how I also met my lead actress, Jess, who played Cal in the film. But Sabrina, who plays the zombie that infects Trevor about halfway through the film, I had met her through that as well, and I just asked her because we grew to be really great friends with her. Um, and I was just like, "Hey, do you want to be a zombie in my film?" Because I want to. As a director, whenever it moves to new challenges, one of the challenges with this film that I really wanted to push myself for was working with people who I don't usually work with.
Okay.
Working with new people, even if they were someone that was just a brand new friend or I had to audition them and such. So I just casually asked her, I was like, "Hey, do you want to be a zombie in my zombie film?" And she ended up saying yeah, and she's a perfect example of, again, Juliana Silva, her makeup talents.
Oh yeah.
Juliana was recommended to me by countless people from Ball State that worked in the theater department. Katie, since Katie had worked with her in the theater department there too.
Wow. Okay.
And I had met Juliana on set of another short film shot up at Ball State by Pale Moonlight Cinema, Popsy, which was a Stephen King adaptation. Met Juliana when I was working on that some days on set, and she eagerly hopped on, and her talents were so great that I simply asked her to just F them up when it came to the zombies. I was like, "I trust you," and she did a fantastic job, creating these creatures. And of course, Sabrina Dillon, who plays Derek, Nadia Fancher, who was also in Popsy, and is the child zombie in the film. Just all of them added life to these zombie characters, which is weird to say because they're dead creatures, but they really add a lot of character to it, and I do believe that that's because they were able to be so comfortable portraying these creatures because of Juliana's makeup.
Oh yeah, she brought it to life. Like,
Absolutely, the film could not have existed without her.
Yeah, she was good. Shout out to her and her. Does she have a page or anything we can mention here?
Yeah. She is just I believe just Julie Silva on Instagram. She just does incredible work.
Yeah.
Incredible work. I cannot praise her enough for what she did on this film and the fact that it would not have existed without her. She is truly the person that made it believable. Made a zombie film believable, because if the makeup looks too hokey, if it looks too much like it came out of Party City or anything, then your suspension of disbelief can completely crumble. And the fact that she was able to make these creatures that looked horrifying in a classic horror-esque way, but also like they existed in our world, it just really helped the story, it helped the film. And yeah, shout out to her and shout out to Sabrina and all my zombies.
Yeah, my zombies. So when it came to casting, how did you? Is this all people that you knew from Ball State, or how'd that process go for you?
So the film originally, when I wrote it, without diving too much in like themes later, I don't know what the other questions are, but I wrote it for my brothers, kind of like an allegory in a way. So Parker is one of my younger brothers, and I knew that he had done theater in high school and everything. So I wrote the role of Trevor for him. So I basically just kind of gave it to him. But when it came to the role of Dave, I had no idea who was going to play that role. I didn't want to play it because I just don't trust my acting abilities, but I also don't trust my abilities to go between acting and directing. Nor do I want my face to be in front of any camera, really, ever. So Grace helped me put together auditions at the beginning of March of 2019. And she sent out mass email to the Ball State Theater Department. We, I think, had about 6 people show up to this, open audition, this casting call. And that's when Devion walked in, and he read the first few lines that were on the sides that I had given him. And he just, to me, immediately encapsulated the character of Dave, the way that he spoke like this brother, the way that he, I can just go, I could talk for hours about Devion's performance and just, how well we work together and how much he grew to be such a great friend and, like a brother to me during this film. But he, I didn't know him at all whatsoever. And asked him if he wanted the role, and he just blew me away. Then to run through everyone, Zoe Taylor is the cashier. She was my director for the Ball State Centennial documentary and for another film during that year that I was an assistant camera on, and also just one of my best friends too. I'm really lucky, just like you guys are included, obviously, to know so many talented people to be able to pull from that are willing to work with me. Then the radio host is actually my Parker's friend, who just has this perfect radio voice. So he was just fantastic. I'm trying to go in order. Like I said, Cal was played by Jessica Cherry, who I know through doing the Little Side Hustle, and she's just an incredible actress in person, and also way better at Animal Crossing than I am. Which, like, Animal Crossing is not a competitive game, but unless you make it one.
Oh yeah,
and
that's how it is.
When you just see her town and stuff, it becomes a competitive game. Then Nadia Fancher, again, I knew that Juliana loved working with her, and I just really wanted a child zombie, because in my head I thought that was the funniest thing on earth. So I asked Juliana to reach out to her.
Wait, it was funny. It was funny to have a child zombie.
To me, it was just hilarious because
like a dead children.
I'm just like, this could impact like anyone. So like, let's have a little kid zombie.
Yeah, that was cool that you found. I mean, find someone to play that part.
Oh, absolutely. And Nadia is such a horror fan that when Juliana asked her, like, hey, do you want to be a zombie? And spoiler again, if you want to be a zombie and you want to get shot, Nadia apparently was elated. She's like, I get to die and I get to be a zombie. Yeah, she was great to work with. Her parents are fantastic. I had met them also on set of Popsy, and they were great to have on set for supper too. Then who has become everyone's favorite character in the film, it seems, is John Demasi, who plays Gordon, the hardware store associate.
yeah.
And John he absolutely steals the show. He, really brought those words to life. He's such a nice, funny, wonderful man that I've known since like 5th grade, because I did community theater in Martinsville. My first ever play was Charlotte's Web, and I was friends with his son and the rest of his kids that were in the plays as well. And I met him doing that, and I just knew that he was a great actor, so I sent him the sides for that scene. He read them back. He's like, yeah, there's no one else. And, everyone on set, we were all laughing behind the camera too. He's one of my favorite. It's weird saying like favorite parts of the film, but
yeah.
It's so fun watching it.
I know
it's one of those parts of the films where after 6 months of rewatching everything over and over again, I can still watch that scene and just like absolutely love it because of the life he brings to it. Dylan Gabbard is a friend of Parker's, so for the scene where it's Derek and Trevor's trying not to get him shot, I just felt like for Parker acting, it would be something really nice to have like one of his friends across from him, die.
Yeah.
But Dylan's also the brother of one of my friends from high school, Ethan Gabbard. And Dylan's a huge film buff and stuff too. He's actually going to be going to Ball State next year for film. So I was like, well, here, I'll get you on a real film set, get you some experience that I wish I could have had at your age to, get you around to be asking questions and just seeing some of the process. And even though it may not be perfect and it may not be how a lot of sets are going to be ran, you can at least get an idea and get that experience. So that was great to have him. Sabrina, like I mentioned, also same place that I met Jess at, and she's just one of my great friends. Who else is in I think that's everyone in the film. Oh, Garrett Looker, the robber.
Say.
Garrett's he's just one of my best buds from Ball State. Um, and he was in my last short film, Interrogation, which is on the Q&A Films YouTube channel, I believe. That ended up being my final project for my independent study at Ball State instead of the original draft of Supper. And Garrett also dies in Interrogation. So I have decided that it's going to just be a running gag that anytime I cast Garrett, he's just going to have to die.
Oh.
Because, to quote Django Unchained, I like the way you die, boy.
So he's going to be like the Kenny.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, and you see him, you're like, he's going to die at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. All right. So then I didn't even say where these questions came from. I should have said that. We're horrible at this. Sorry, guys. But we have questions that were submitted by people on social media. Anybody had any questions for Austin? And well, now we're on question number 2, also from Anonymous, same person. What was the most challenging part of the production process for Supper?
Oh,
because I imagine it's all easy, right? Like, there's probably nothing.
Oh, it's all so easy. And the number one rule in film is that everything will go according to plan.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, we only ever went over scheduled time on one day on set, but scheduled time was definitely the hardest part of the entire film, just because scheduling around so many people that are either grad students or current undergrad students, as well as people's jobs, and then weather gets in the way, life gets in the way, other circumstances. We have people we were lucky enough to allow us to film in their homes or film on their property. And sometimes life just gets in the way, especially when you're doing a project where you're just asking for people to give up their time, and you can't really offer anything financially to them. You can offer food to them. You can offer, your best intentions of what the film will turn out to be. But, I'm really thankful for everyone that gave up their time, whether they're on set one day, on set an hour, on set every single day. I'm so incredibly grateful for that. And part of, doing a project like this is being understanding of people's schedules, because you can't demand it, because you aren't able to give them something, like monetary compensation that gives them a reason to show up to set, other than the fact that they have the passion for this project, which feels great. It's really rewarding to have people on set that have the passion for, this process, for not even just for your story and your film, but just for being on set in general and doing what they love. So scheduling was the hardest part, but it's also something where it taught me a lot of patience, and it also taught me a lot about scheduling, just in terms of levels of communication and, should we use Google Calendar? Should we use Slack? Should we use text message, email? All these different things to communicate and to get everyone's schedule all in one place, and to just be understanding of people, because, like I said, you're not giving them any sort of monetary compensation. The only thing that you're giving them is your best intentions. And so I am really, really incredibly grateful to every single person that showed up to set. Like I said, whether it was for an hour or every single day, the fact that there were people there and that we were able to get the film made is just so incredible, given the fact that it was almost essentially a no budget film, since all the budget had to go towards, props, makeup, and so many other things. So that's the biggest thing that I can say was both the hardest part of the project, but the biggest learning point of the project that I could take away from it.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. I can't say there's anything I've done where scheduling was not a bigger part of the issue with anything. It's always difficult. You got the next question, James?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So this one comes from let's see. It comes from Sabrina. She asks, "Have you always wanted to do your own take on the zombie trope, or was this type of film not something you saw yourself doing?"
You probably kind of answered this at the beginning, didn't you?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking.
Yeah, I guess provide a slightly new answer, and I'll keep it short for once. Is I've kind of always had this thing in the back of my head where I want to dip my toe in every genre if I can, if the story's right, if I feel comfortable doing it. And the zombie genre was one that I really never saw myself doing until I just came up with the story idea. So, the story idea popped up for the original 3-page script. I wrote it, and then, like I said, it turned into just one of those philosophies, went hand in hand with it of, okay, I think The Walking Dead is trash, but I'm not just going to trash someone or something and not do anything about it. I'm going to ask myself, okay, why is it trash? Why is it so hard for me to invest myself into it? Why? What are the things that I think is wrong with it? How would I fix them? And I may not be successful. I could end up doing a worse job than they are, but I don't feel proud of myself if I am just going to naysay something and not think of how I would fix the problem.
Nice. I think that's my problem. Every time I go to see a movie, I'm like, well, maybe I would have done it this way and to make it better, but then you gotta like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
No, stand up.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, the next question. I don't know how to pronounce this person's name. I think is what you asking? What you asking? Why? Why you're asking? It's Zoe or Zoe? I don't know.
It's Zoe.
Zoe. Okay. First name. What you asking? She says you have an excellent theme on displaying gun violence and the disconnect people have when holding weapons such as these. What was the influence for this, and why did you decide to make this an underlying theme in a horror format?
Oh, so one of the first few drafts of this script, I guess to get out, not to get political. My philosophies have always been like a handgun to protect yourself, a rifle to feed yourself. I think that's enough. If you buy 1.5 million guns because the government's going to get you, you're going to lose. That's just always been like a little philosophy. So one of the first few drafts of the script just kind of had some kind of ham-fisted dialogue about that ideology of like, oh boy, we got guns and we're going to use all of them. And it ended up being too much to where it detracted from the characters. And I just threw it into the hardware store scene of, because the underlying theme of that really was the humanity of it was, I genuinely believe that like protecting your home is like a valid moral. But when some people talk about protecting their home, what if you just turn that up to 11? And it was this idea of like, man, some 5-year-old kid got on my lawn, but I got to use a shotgun. And I was like, turn that up to 11 and have this like big, I don't know, crazy character to play with was fun. And it didn't really mean for any of it to come across as any sort of like, anti-gun message at all. It was really just the gunplay and the violence in the film was more to speak to the morality of the characters at hand. These zombies aren't people, but they used to be. And to kind of play with that, again, with the zombie genre of, or in all these zombie films, people are so quick to just kill the zombies. One of the influences I had was Warm Bodies, because Warm Bodies kind of talks about the mind of the zombies and such. I honestly haven't seen Shaun of the Dead or Maggie, which is the zombie film that has Arnold Schwarzenegger and Abigail Breslin.
I haven't either.
Same.
And I specifically didn't want to, because after writing the script, I didn't want those influences to be there, even if I didn't mean for them to be. But yeah, a lot of the violence was more to play up the characters and the morals and the moral decisions that I wanted my main character to face, rather than any sort of message. And it's a rewarding thing to hear that it could have that message, because art should make people think in different ways. Um, but my approach to the violence overall through the film was, oh, a little kid just got shot. Okay, that shows how the police are just taking this threat of infection seriously. Okay, we talk about a kid getting shot for fun. Okay, that used to be a kid. We talk about someone that you recognize who's now a threat being taken out just because they aren't seen as human anymore because of who they are. And then in the end, how we see Dave's character arc, the way his character arc goes is that in the end, his brother's a zombie, but to him, it's still a person.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted all that violence to, I guess, express morality more than any sort of message towards violence. And then just as from a filmmaking standpoint, I didn't want to really show a lot of gratuitous violence, because I didn't want it to come across as me glorifying us killing all these people or anything, and I didn't want to detract from the story either. So while the zombies could be really grotesque, like we have a ripped open stomach, we have a disgusting face, we have the scene where Trevor's eating a body for the first time. I wanted to save those moments for when they would be most impactful. It's also the same philosophy I have for cursing in a film. In this one, the F word is only used twice, and it's in a hardware store scene by one character, because I didn't want it to detract or to get so muddled down because of its overusage. Because to me, when it's limited, it has more of an impact.
Yeah.
It's kind of the beauty of the PG-13 F word as well. But I wanted to take that same philosophy and apply it to the violence. Of when you see the violence happen, it has more of an impact because you haven't seen it throughout the entire thing. It's not so over the top. It's not so gory and gratuitous. When the zombie kid gets shot, it's from far away. When a cashier gets shot at the beginning, it's from far away. The headshot to the zombie on the side of the road is quick. But Trevor coming up and eating is, we hold on it for a while, and you have all the gore and stuff there, just because I felt like that would be a more effective way to show the lengths that the story has gone, but also that, Dave has gone to give, to feed a human to his zombie brother, and to slowly start accepting it, but also not because he's giving in to the zombie infection, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I never intended for there to be some sort of like anti-gun overall message or anything with the violence. It really came more from the philosophy of like less is more, and because that less is more, when it does happen, and it happens with certain characters and such, it plays into the morals. And I'm just kind of rambling at this point, but I hope that makes sense.
No, I get what you mean. I do think like you were saying, the violence and the cursing, it can take away if it's used too much. And I feel like in indie films, you see it a lot overused.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All
right. So another question.
This one's a typo.
It is. This one is actually an anonymous one too, but they also say, but you can probably guess who. They ask who designed the title, because dang, I think I want them to work for my production company.
Okay, that's to me, I guess. To probably guess who it is.
I think I have a good idea who it is too, but to keep their identity secret, Caitlin Heimer of Absorb Productions designed our beautiful title, which is also on the t-shirts, which I am wearing right now.
Mine's in the closet. I didn't have time to find it. I wanted to wear it for this.
I still need to get James his. But yeah, the title, I just sent Caitlin the font and a basic idea of what I wanted. She sent me back the first version, and my jaw just dropped, just because it was perfect. It was simplistic. And the version that we use on the shirts with the little placemat and the fork and knife was just, again, simplistic and perfect. And it's like this, I don't know, simple complexity, if that makes any sense. It's just, it just works fantastic. I stole the font from Jackie Brown, the Tarantino film, just because I really like the style of the Tiffany font. And yeah, I just sent the font over to her, and she worked her magic, and it looks fantastic.
She loved working on that. She'd like to do more stuff like that, but she was excited that she was
I
able
will
to do
definitely
that.
have to message her again.
Yeah, I didn't even go over these questions before. Caitlin printed this out for me, and she wrote in where it says, "I want them to work for my boyfriend's production company," is what she put on there. That was she put what. But I didn't even.
Oh,
I
okay,
didn't.
yeah.
I didn't even read all this. I just said, "Okay," like when she handed it to me. Well, the next question is, it's a three-part. There's three questions for the same peoples. It's two people, from Megan and Brian. And the first question is, I was wondering the same thing too. How come you didn't cast Adam Sandler as Trevor?
Ooh, now that is a really good question, because you see, the issue is that when we were going through the casting process, the 2019 smash hit movie directed by the Safdie brothers that came out in December, Uncut Gems, had not yet released. So at the time, the only Adam Sandler movie that I genuinely loved was Happy Gilmore. I almost said Happy Madison, which is just his production company. But Happy Gilmore, I genuinely love. Otherwise, I'm not an Adam Sandler fan. But then my life changed on December 26th of 2019 when I went to AMC theaters for the 4 o'clock showing of Uncut Gems, 2019, distributed by A24, produced by Alara Pictures, directed by the Safdie brothers, starring Adam Sandler, Idina Menzel, Lakeith Stanfield, Eric Bogosian, Julia Fox, and Kevin Garnett.
I feel like we need a
Changed
whole
my
trailer
life.
coming over right now with this
Absolutely,
with Austin's
yes.
voiceover.
So if I could do it again, Adam Sandler would actually be Dave, and Shia LaBeouf would be Trevor.
Okay.
That would be
okay.
interesting. Okay, the second question from Megan and Brian as well. Would you consider doing a mashup film of Supper and Cars? For example, would you substitute Lightning McQueen in for Trevor and the like?
I think Lightning McQueen would actually fit more the Dave role because of the cocky character. I think that Trevor would definitely be a Sally, just kind of like, stubborn, wants to stick to kind of old ways. Mater is 100% Gordon, and
I see it.
yeah. Chick Hicks would definitely be a cop. So that is my Cars Supper mashup on the fly.
I like this because I haven't read any of these till I'm reading these all. I said. All right. The third question from them is there an uncut version? We'd really like to see those gems.
To not redo the Uncut Gems bit, there are a few scenes that we did have to cut out of the film because of scheduling, and there is one scene that it just didn't add anything. It really just isn't that great of a scene that I cut the day of release.
Oh,
Like 5 hours before release, I cut it completely out and re-uploaded to Vimeo. Because I was just like, this kind of ruins the pacing.
Yeah.
So
that sucks.
there
when you have
is
to do that.
technically an uncut version of the film that exists.
Where does it
And
exist?
it is not a gem.
Can we find it?
No, you cannot by design.
That's always the worst when you have to cut something for the overall product in the end. When it's like you don't want to, but like it's for the better. It always
Yeah,
sucks.
and it was something that really in hindsight the project benefited from it. One of the scenes that we just couldn't shoot because of scheduling and weather is something that it's the only scene I really regret that we couldn't put in the film. But again, I don't know. You just never know how it would impact the whole film unless it's in there or being left out. But I'm still proud of what we have.
Okay, I'll let you go or read the others, James. I guess those are from Megan and Brian as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
they did
I see now.
those three, and then they also did the
They have a
three more questions, but more serious.
Yeah, they have a serious category.
The first one that of those three, or what's something you wanted in the film but didn't make it?
Oh, so that goes right off of the last question. So it was a scene of after Dave goes hunting when he leaves Trevor at home. I wanted there to be a scene of Dave actually in the woods hunting, and he almost gets attacked by an infected, and like one runs up to him and he shoots it. He's kind of like frazzled a little, kind of realizing that Trevor may have been right and starting to worry a little about Trevor, but kind of brushing it off because he's the big brother and he has to be all keep up the tough guy act. Can't admit he's wrong, and then it would go immediately into Trevor getting attacked. So it would be kind of a parallel of Dave is there to defend himself, but also he was right in pulling the trigger. Trevor was right in being like, they're out there, be safe, like you shouldn't be doing this at this time. And to kind of mainly add to the guilt that I wanted Dave to feel for the fact that he wasn't there at home to protect Trevor from this. And the last words he ever said to him were, "Don't be a pussy."
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that guilt for me when I was writing it came from the idea that, if that's the last thing I ever said to my brother, to my parents, to like a best friend or something, I would feel horrible about it.
It's good advice, though.
So, yeah, exactly, right? I mean, if you wouldn't have done that, maybe he'd still be alive, but...
All right. Another question was, are there any Easter eggs sprinkled throughout the film?
Yeah. I'm trying to think where. I think one of the tapes we used as a store cam is actually like Parker's birth video, which my mom would kill me when she hears this and she finds out that I just took that and slapped a piece of tape on there.
Oh, that's great.
Just slapped the piece of tape on there. I'm like, it's a prop now. Gosh, what else?
Oh, you mean the tape? I was thinking like you had it playing somewhere.
Oh yeah, no. Oh gosh, no. That'd be the end of me.
Oh God.
What an Easter egg!
It's not really an Easter egg, but Amy's truck. That's her actual truck that's used as Dave's truck throughout the entire thing, and my car is Cal's car. But Amy's truck bit the dust a few weeks ago, like right before the release.
Aww.
So
wow.
Its last great role was in Supper.
You should put like in loving memory in the credits.
I should have. I know, in memoriam, it would have been great. I'm trying to think other Easter eggs. The only other one I can think of that I know of off the top of my head right now, I'm sure some others would pop up. There aren't that many, but there's in the scene where Dave and Cal are in the living room on the couch watching TV. That's actually the audio of my last film, Interrogation, just playing in the background.
That's cool.
So film within the film, which apparently the robber stars in. So, so yeah, those are all Easter eggs I can think of, if any.
Okay. All right. And then the last three of those are you happy with the film length, or would you have preferred it shorter or longer?
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'll answer that question. I remembered one other Easter egg.
Mm-hmm.
Trevor's actual collar, his shock collar, and the remote for it is actually the remote, and the piece that's within the collar are the DVD player attachment for the PlayStation 2.
I remember that
we
day.
just had lying around at home.
Yep.
So I just gaff taped it within this dog collar and gave Devion this remote, and that became the shock collar. But to answer the other question, I wish it could have been longer, just for more character development reasons to add, and for world building. Wish I could have had just a few other characters to really show the humanity or lack of humanity going on in the world because of the infection, as well as just a little more relationship building between Dave and Trevor, just to make that final scene more of a payoff. I'm still really proud again of how everything turned out, but I do wish I could have added at least another 10 minutes of just some world building and some relationship building.
Yeah, if it's not, I don't want to say it's easier, but I guess it's it's probably harder. I'm trying to say this right. Harder to write a short film because you got to figure out shortcut ways to portray what you want to
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was it for our questions that were submitted.
Yeah.
Well, sweet.
But
Did you want to go some of the ones that you had?
I want to say, like, my favorite part of the whole thing was I love the nighttime scenes. I loved all of that. I know I texted you about that. I
Really?
love the it looked so good.
Oh
And
yeah,
that's
yeah. Our I mean our crew for the DPs, you know, Steven and Amy, they knocked it out of the park.
So-
This
Oh, I just wanted to ask. Are you probably gonna answer it? I'll let you talk. Go. So.
well so the only nighttime scene, only two nighttime scenes that were actually shot at night were the opening scene, and then the scene where Dave shoots the infected on the side of the road, because the outside nighttime scenes, and yeah, Henry Tegler was the gaffer for the scene on the side of the road. He's an incredibly talented gaffer, and DP, if you guys can look him up on Instagram, Henry Tegler, he's just an insanely talented director of photography. And so are Amy and Steven, of course, and they're just my best friends. So I don't know whether to praise them or bury them, but Amy E. Fry on Instagram, then here_is_Steven on Instagram too. But nighttime scenes in the house were day for night. There's actually a duvetine in the window behind the robber that's just casually hanging up there to black out the sun outside at 1 o'clock in the day. On the microwave, you can see it says 1 o'clock when the robber gets shot. So in the film, it works as 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's also 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's
and
awesome.
The light coming from the side is legitimately just a bunch of sunlight. But they,
Oh, really?
yeah,
I was
it's just
gonna
a
ask,
bunch of sunlight spilling into the room.
So were there any lights used at all? Anything?
Yes, we use some to shoot down the hallway towards Dave when he's initially walking in. I think we still blasted some color in from the side too, and we used a fog machine to add some haze and stuff too. So I think the haze also really helped kind of convey, I guess, the nighttime. But yeah, I was really proud of my entire camera crew and lighting crew for how incredibly well they pulled it off. Not that I'm shocked by any means, because Amy and Steven are both incredibly talented and have such sharp eyes. So yeah, those scenes were really fun.
Yeah, I love. I don't know. I like the nighttime stuff, and that looked really good. Was any of that done in post, like color wise? I mean, I know there was color grading involved, but
The temperature change and bringing down some of the exposure and such.
I was just curious if you'd done it in camera or not. So I'd seen some people do that before, but
majority of it was done in camera, which was nice. So
yeah.
All right. One question I actually have is what was the, or if there was, what was the hardest like artistic choice that you had to make while making the film?
Ooh.
Hitting render.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That final export. Hitting make link public. Oh gosh. What was the hardest artistic choice? Oh man. There are a few. There are a few just things in the film that were like artistic choices. The opening scene, the cashier just being nosy, you know, from a world building perspective. It's like, okay, she should probably suspect that it's a zombie because everyone knows about it. But also, I just wanted to kind of play on some of the horror tropes there. And another place I wanted to play on some typical horror tropes and classic horror was the scene where we just see center frame, the infected that scratches Trevor. I just wanted to highlight that makeup too that Juliana did because she spent like an hour and a half, putting Sabrina in that makeup. And yeah, those were some big choices. I'm trying to think what I could go on about different choices that were just they were tough to make, from some logic standpoints and such. I think the biggest one, just because of making everyone stand around for like 5 minutes. It was the last shot because I mean all the way through the credits. That's one single take. It's just we set it up, told them what to do, and Parker and Devion you know after Trevor attacks Dave, they just had to lay there on the ground. And I know you guys were on set that day too.
I remember
that.
that.
Just all like, hey, everyone quiet, and you can see the clouds completely move. That was a big choice, but I don't know. I think the biggest thing for me was the biggest artistic choice was letting other people make choices. This film taught me a lot about just trusting what other people are doing. So you're letting Steven and Amy have pretty much complete control of what the shots are going to be. Of course, director and DP relationship, you still talk about what the shots are going to be. Still bounce ideas back and forth. But, I love improvising with the camera. I'm all for like, if we have a shot list to get a general idea, but when we get on set, if we can combine shots or come up with something completely new, that's when I feel like we get some of our strongest material. The shot where where she drops and it reveals that Dave has shot her, which is my absolute favorite shot of the entire film. Steven came up with that all on his own the day that we were shooting it, and it was just it's gorgeous. And so letting them have that freedom to where it's like you're not such a control freak, because as a director, what you need to be doing is putting everyone in place so that they can do the job better than that you can. Giving the actors a general idea, but also being able to talk with them to craft this character together. Talking with the sound person to make sure that, your artistic vision isn't going to ruin, the objectivity of how the sound should be, that they can still do their job right, so that their job can benefit you, help me, help you. Juliana with makeup, I didn't really have any input on. I didn't have any input on anyone except for Trevor, and it was really just like a few minor tweaks. But just taking this vision in my head and kind of letting loose of that, and just telling someone else, make it how you want, what you're proud of, was probably the biggest artistic choice throughout the entire film. Ross Brown, who did the score, I had never had anyone score a film before. It's usually just royalty-free music or something. And I sent him the soundtrack to the video game The Last of Us. I was like, I want kind of this acoustic, simple like vibe, to more emphasize the emotions. And he still played with it so much. And I absolutely love the score of this film. It's one of my favorite elements, because it heightens everything else so much. And letting him just have that control, and him just texting me like, hey, I'm playing with this, let me know how it sounds. And just trusting so many people and so many different elements was another big learning experience, but a huge artistic choice from what we're so used to as starting filmmakers of your director, writer, DP, and editor. You're all of those things. And then you're going to throw the camera in front of someone and you make all the choices. But you kind of oversee things, and you're making narrative choices while you're letting all the technical stuff be handled by other people. Even Holly Barnhart as my producer, and Rachel Van Maitre as my I just pronounced her name wrong, Van Mater. She's gonna hear this and yell at me about it. But those two, she was my assistant director. Those two, having them, Rachel wrote the call sheets. She made sure that I was using my time wisely, and that we were getting everything in the allotted time, not just for me to move on, but for the rest of the crew to still stay happy, for Holly to be contacting the cast and crew about their availability, and contacting other places that we're going to be shooting at, like the locations. That was just a huge thing that, coming out of this, it's like there's no way I can go back from it.
Oh, really?
There's no way I can go back from not having any of this, because it allowed me to focus on in every scene when I'm talking with the actors and when I'm formulating it in my head, how is this playing into the big picture? And I hate using this word, but like my vision was like really improved because you had all these other people on set, all these other people doing these jobs that saw that same vision, and maybe from a different angle, maybe through a different lens, but we all had the same goal in the end, is what it really felt like. And I think it really shows in the film.
Yeah, that's awesome. So was it once you accepted uh re- leaving responsibility to others, was it a relief? Did you feel like not a burden, but relief that you can focus on what?
Yeah, it really was. Especially when you're working with new people that you haven't
Yeah.
worked with before. Because it can kind of seem really condescending, just because I know from other experiences I've had, whether people intended it or not, whether it's on a film set or it's at work or something. There are times where uh hovering over someone and not trusting them can seem really condescending, especially when you bring them onto this project and you put them in this role and they're supposed to have this role, and you keep kind of you're like, oh well, make sure this, make sure that, make sure that, and it can come off condescending. It's something that I was trying to be aware of, and that awareness ended up turning into this this trust of just like, okay, you reminding myself that I brought them on the set. I asked for them to be on set. I said yes to them coming to set because I trust what they do, or someone else recommended them to me because they trust what they do and I trust that person. So it's just this level of trust which you take a risk with, but I mean, it really, when you see it pay off, it does make it easier. So to answer your question, like I got more relief as it went on.
Yeah.
As I started realizing that like this is benefiting me, and it's also making everyone else happier, because when you're not being that condescending prick on set, when you're not hovering over everyone, when you're not trying to be the complete control freak, people want to keep coming back to set because they feel like they can do their job. They feel like they can have input. They feel like they're wanted. And that was another big thing for me as a director, is I wanted everyone to feel wanted on set. I want everyone to know that I don't believe in such things as small parts. The fact that you are on set, no matter what you've done, whether you set up stakes for the rope for the zombies, or you built the camera, or you're the person running audio all day, no matter what, your help is appreciated so much.
Yeah, that rope was fun doing all that.
Yeah, it was.
Well, I say that's all I got here. James, do you have any other questions, or?
Actually, I just have one more. Just kind of looking on from here on out. Is there anything, like any other projects that you're working on or currently working on? And
Garrett Looker and I are actually both finally writing a pilot for a series that we've talked about for the past 2 years. Have no idea when that will be written, when we plan on producing it, but right now it just kind of feels good to, I guess, let go of Supper and just kind of feel really proud of what was made, learn from it, and take it into whatever the next project is. Whether it is a pilot for a series, or making the whole series, or it's another short film that comes up within the next few months. Just kind of taking all the feedback that I've gotten, all the really, really good constructive criticism, and really taking it all to heart and applying it to whatever comes next. So just writing some stuff right now, but also just relaxing.
Yeah.
I do not want to turn that hard drive back on for a long time.
That does remind me. I do want to ask you before we get off here. So is Supper going into festivals, or where's Supper now that's all grown up and moved on?
It is, we are currently door dashing it to festivals. Supper will be delivered on a food truck I submitted it to a few festivals. Haven't gotten any confirmation on whether or not it's in any yet, so I'm not going to try to jinx it, but it's been submitted to a few festivals, but at the same time, I don't want it to let it just kind of sit in this festival, zone for the next few years. So I haven't submitted it to any festivals that are going to go beyond, I think, September. So the goal is going to be to just do another public final release, hopefully on Halloween or sometime in October, and just kind of let it be out there. And at that point, it will truly be let go. But yeah, right now it's running to some festivals just because I feel like, one, it's the first thing that I've made that I truly feel like warrants festival submissions. But I feel like I also owe it to the incredible cast and crew that put in so much time, so much hard work, so much just excellent work into the film. Devion, Parker with their incredible performances, Juliana with her makeup especially, Amy and Steve with their cinematography, just everything in the film that anyone that wasn't me worked on. I really owe it to them to try and get them some awards for the just absolutely stellar work that they poured into it.
Okay, is that it for you, James?
Yep, I think so.
All right.
Yep, that's all the questions I
don't
have.
run too long, but we should have you on again, Austin.
I'd love to be on and talk about something that's not this film. But yeah, I love talking to you guys. So I'd love to be back on at some point in the future.
We'll do some nerdy gear talk or something.
Oh, absolutely. I love talking about gear.
Yeah, me too. Maybe we could do like a segment later where you talk about all the gear that was used on Supper.
Oh, yeah.
That's something I would like to see. I don't know if anyone else cares, but I get real nerdy about all that stuff.
Oh, I'd love to talk about it because there was so much fun gear, but also so much of the just the completely rednecked up rigs that we made and everything.
Do you have any photos of anything you had set up? I know we got some behind the scene photos, but
oh gosh,
I just thought maybe
dig for that. We might, but
maybe we could have like
digging.
Steven on too, or other people who talk about everyone that was touching gear. I don't know. Well, I still don't know how to end these things.
Same.
This is it. This is the guy, Austin, that we wanted on here for 2 whole episodes. And look, we did it. So
I was definitely here.
Okay. Well,
thank you guys so much for having me on here. It was a blast getting to talk to you guys, on the podcast. Of course, always love talking to you guys and love having you guys on set. So thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. We
thank you.
Want to have you on more. Well, that's it. I guess we'll see you or talk to your ear holes in the next one. Okay, bye.